Hi, everybody. Uh, hello. Let me bring up the agenda here. I was trying. Let me see. Oh, good. Okay, doke. There. Um, Abdul, how you doing? Michael, Graham, Henry, Aloysius, Michael again. John, Hader, Paul, Donald, Alpar, Steve, Kenosaki. Is that correct? Hey, Raymond. Okie doke. Today is sort of unusual because I think we're sort of at a point where uh, the people sending us the watches are on vacation and won't be back for a while. So I can talk about certain things. Uh, and we'll get started and trying to address some of the issues that we have to deal with. First of all, the GPHG competing watches was published. Okay, so I hope all of you guys got a chance to take a look at our watch. It's listed in what looks like murderer's row. I mean, we're in a new category called time only. And time only is, I thought, oh, this will be a good one. They'll sort of have the rough stuff somewhere else, and it's not. Competition that's in this category is daunting, to say the least, and I hope we do well. That's all I can say. I've looked at the various ones there, and most of them are really good, at least as good as ours, and we'll see who we can charm, I guess, to get us at least over to nominations. Even that's going to be tough. So anyway, we'll see what happens. We're there. We got all of our stuff, and the video is awfully short. They gave us 1 minute for a video. Tried to make the most out of what we had. So any comments or questions about that before we go on? These are finger cots. I'm going to try to show you guys something a little later. I don't know if we can or not. My screwdriver's screwed up. So we'll see. Okay, we're good. We got 2 grams. Okay. Yeah, the write-up, Donald. I tell you, we can thank Owen for that. He really helped out a lot and took away my sort of just the facts, technical stuff, and put in some humanity into it. So I thought that was great. Oh yeah, Abdul, no kidding. The it's a tough category. There's no two ways about it. I you know I don't know what other alternative we had. We tried Petite Aiguille last time. We got in trouble, and so figured, okay, let's not try that one again. Not for our watch. And so the way I look at it, our watch is in some pretty nice company. I'll put it that way, and that's sort of nice. I'm already thinking is that maybe our next watch, the Air Zulu, we ought to have that as pilot sports watch, sport pilot or something, go in the sports category. I noticed that Singer put in one of their it had a chrono an Agonor chronograph movement in it. I'm not sure if it does chronograph or something else. That apparently that movement does more than just standard chronograph. Yeah, Michael, that was what I was hoping to do, is to say, look, I think some of these other descriptions of their movement were either exactly the same movement they've been using. Ours ours is too, but we haven't even got ours is almost the same. Anyway, like I said, I think, yeah, Singer's is the same as Mozart chronograph. I think that's one of the reasons, Michael, that Singer went to the sports group, is that the chronograph group was, it would be very tough to do there. But the ones in the sports group has traditionally been sort of the lower price watches, and I don't know how they feel about some of these higher priced ones. The ones in the time only category, I thought we would be, high. We're not. We're sort of in the low middle of that group price wise, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, it's like, okay, we're do what we do. Matu's watch, even though it's priced so it would fit into the challenge category, is in the petite aiguille category. So, support that. I think I I put up a list of their 6 different Agenor watches. I mean, watches with Agenor movements are some aspect of it, and I thought that was sort of cool. So we're in like very good company. Men's complications may also be okay for Zulu. Yeah, that's probably the one I think it belongs to, Michael. How many gets nominated? Abdul's right, 6. I've been waiting to hear from him on that. I don't know when their schedule is. That I get an email and it says, okay, this is what we want you guys to do. And you guys being the 900 people who are part of the academy. Okay, we want you to do this and we want you to do that. And this is when this is going to be, and this is when that's going to be. So but I'm not sure when I say, okay, let's have the ones you want. And I'm assuming that they'll say, okay, give us 6 for each category. I don't know. We'll see. I will report everything that's possible. I'll put it that way. How's that? Yeah, Zulu. That Zulu watch, though, I think is going to be very special for us, because I think it's far enough away from the AGH 6911, which both of the 6801 and 6802 are based on. It's basically a 6911 with a small seconds, okay, on both of them. And of course, just putting in small seconds isn't, you can't just put that anywhere, okay? So that's not a bad thing. It's just like, but Zulu, Air Zulu is going to be very different from that, I think. Yeah, Mike. Matthew has several watches that he designed in there, including his own. That's, I don't know why. I've got. I have no idea who's going to win what. I've seen some watches that would very much surprise me, that were in the petite aiguille, like Kadoki's. One of his was in there, and I think he may have won that, and I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Hi, Mario. How you doing, man? Okay. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is that um, last time we said, okay, Sebastian is going to get 15 watches to ship before he takes off to on vacation. Well, he didn't. What has happened? And there's our watch is the one that stuff happens to. None of this was a problem on the first watch, and on this one, certain things were changed, and the shake-up and the shakeout is just incredible. Okay, so the some of us had been sending watches back and saying, like, I probably the first one. I got one of the first watches and one of the first person to send it back and say, hey, something screwy here. Most of it's been within the keyless works. So they get it all fixed up. And then another thing comes on. Then they get that fixed up. Then something else comes along and then they get that fixed up. So it's been sort of like for the movement it is. And then they had some half-ass watchmakers working for them that they didn't recognize until it was. So they got to fix all of those up. Well, right before they had it. By the way, too, the 15 are all ready, and so when Sebastian comes back, they're definitely ready and ready for shipping and so forth. The two that go to the United States will not have bands. All of the guys should have the bands already. Okay. So that's that. If there were supposed to be 13 of those to be going to the Europe group, and God knows those guys have been waiting. Not to mention the guys in Asia and Australia. So it's like, we're going to be all through August. Once they come back, they're going to hear from me every day. Anyway, not much more I can say about that, but kind of say, hey, you guys, you don't need a vacation. But one thing is that Agenor will be open for they'll have at least a skeleton crew there, so they probably have some people shifted on their vacations. Okay, let's see. Now the stem problems that have been, that's a new problem. A stem can just come out very easily. And let me see here. Hang on. Trying to show what the nature of that problem is. Working with the stem is a relatively easy thing, relatively speaking. I'm going to see if I can take this one out. Okay. I wanted to show you what the issue is, okay, with the stem. And this is why it's something that Sebastian has to handle and not Agenor. This is the back of a movement, okay? And you can see right here, that's the little hole, let's see, for the stem, okay? Or you can't put the movement in with the stem on. And so what you have to do, let me see if I can do this real quickly here. Just to show you, it's something that okay, the stem is out. Okay, with the stem out, then what this is the one I'm going to use for example. Then the movement and the dial and everything will now fit. I think I made the. I think my dial on this one is too big. I can't get a break some days. Hang on, let me see. Let me try this. I got another one here. I got a million of them. Hang on, just to show you what the what's going on and remember to. Okay, here's another one I took out. Um, okay, you put it in and put the 12 up here, and then see the little, oh, there it is, that little hole right here. You put the stem back in, all right, like that. Not like that. This particular, this one is two. This is a three bears problem. Anyway, you put the stem back in, and then you tighten the screw up, and Bob's your uncle. The whole thing is done. So it's not a big operation, and the reason I say that is because, let me show you where it is on our watch real quick. Hang on a second. Okay, here's our watch, and here is the little screw that secures and releases the stem. Okay, so it's one of the ones that the stem came out of means that that little screw wasn't screwed correctly, wasn't screwed tight enough. Now, what Steve is going to do, his came out, so it needs it. What Nicholas offered to do was to, sort of basically explain to a watchmaker what you need to get it in right. However, Steve would rather send it back, and I think that's a good thing, and here's why. This is something that Sebastian has to do, and if we got one with the screw that hadn't been tightened enough, sort of Nicholas is got to sit down with him and say, "Look, this is what needs to be done," or one of the other watchmakers that works at Agenor. So it's something that that I think it's just another thing that needs to be done right. Now, as far as the the crime of the century or something, it's not. It's something that is important for them to get right. Now, here's what's been going on so far, and why we ended up in such a, everything got messed up. First of all, the problems that Sebastian had to deal with were in the dial and the case. Several of those had to be returned. So he really wasn't paying attention that, the movements, he just assumed, the movements coming from Agenor, they're going to be perfect. Well, the movements coming from Agenor weren't perfect because they had some people working for them that, were just like in a hurry, and they did a half-assed job for them. So it's something, I think, that is sort of a shakedown cruise. You got to realize that this isn't what Agenor does. Agenor does the movement and sends it to whomever has ordered the movement, and that's it. And they take care of the rest. They take care of the casing. They take care of everything. And here we have sort of a semi-employee of Agonor. Maid is not connected to Agonor other than the fact is that they're renting some space where Agonor is in the same way that Matu is. Matu nor Sebastian are on the payroll. I'm glad both of them are great guys to work with. But I'll tell you, we unfortunately have become the sort of the shakedown crews for a lot of things going on. And so every problem that we have, I think it's important that we take care of it with them, with Agonor. Now, if there's a little thing that we can fix to take to a watchmaker, that's up to us. If it were me, I would go to my watchmaker with the information that with that kind of problem. With other kinds of problem, I'd send it back too. And in fact, I did. And it ended up with a broken stem. Well, watchmakers here aren't going to have a stem replacement for an Agonor-made movement. So it was a good thing I did. So anyway, I just wanted to do the just to explain it to you guys what the situation is, and I'm going to take Nicholas up on that. I myself I would take it to a watchmaker instead of sending it back and having her send it back to me, but that's my choice, and nobody else's. And I think we ought to have it that way. If something's not working, send it back, have them fix it the way it should have been in the first place. On the other hand, if something is easily fixable by a local watchmaker, I'd much rather do that. And the fact that Nicholas has volunteered to provide a watchmaker with the details on it is something that I think would be very important. Anyway, I wanted to talk about that with you guys just to get your views and everything else on it. Yeah, the testing part. Okay, any useful comments? I'll put it that way. I don't know, man. Anything else you guys want to, any other insights or anything like that? Owen. Yeah, Abdul, if it needs a special part or tool, but if it turns out to be something relatively simple for a watchmaker to do, now you could run it up the road. You could hop on the train and go up and fix my watch. Having to ship it overseas and then go through the stuff that we've had to go through with both FedEx and DHL is just yeah, Hader, really Maid shouldn't have, that's something, and that's a good point, Hader. They securing the stem should be something that they would do in making the movement because they've got to test it in the case with the time, and you got to set the time. In order to set the time, you've got to have the stem in there. So it's something I think that that has to be addressed on all levels. On the other hand, the only way that Sebastian can get the movement inside the case is to take the stem out. And the only way to take the stem out is to loosen the screw, take the stem out, put the movement in the case, put the stem back in, then tighten the screw, and then put the back on. I mean that's part of encasing, not part of it's sort of there's sort of a some kind of nexus there. So I agree that we shouldn't have any of these problems. Okay. And I think by the time it gets to Europe, I hope they'll be fixed. I really do. we sort of the U.S. has become the canary in the coal mine, with the guinea pigs. I think the last two guys, Michael and one other guy in the U.S., are sort of feeling, oh, it's taken so long for us to get our watches. You're lucky because so many of these little gremlins have shown up, and I think it's 90% of it is it's getting the process right. Why the first process went almost perfect, and everything was done. The casing was done by the same watchmaker who assembled the movement. So anyway. No, I agree. I'm just saying we've got stuff to do. Yeah. Oh no, Hader and Abdul and Steve, I agree. I mean, we've got to get these things done, but I think it's important for us to find out exactly as close as possible the nature of the problem so we can address the problem, not just sort of like, say you guys didn't do it right. We know that. They know that. And so that's going to be the important thing, is to fix the operations so we don't have this in the future. That's going to be the main thing. Poor Sebastian. I mean, here he's looking at the only problem that he sees is in the cases and maybe the dial. But man, I'll tell you, it's just one thing after another. God knows what's next. I don't even. I'll talk about the bands in a minute, but right now, yeah, no, that's another thing Brian brought up about having access to a good watchmaker. Mine disappeared. After the pandemic, I went back to his shop and it was closed up, and that was it. There was no. He was also in his mid 80s, so he may have not made it through the pandemic. I don't know, but so that's another thing. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to have a watchmaker look at your watch, you want to be sure it's a competent one. You don't want some guy who, took an online course in watchmaking and thinks he's a watchmaker. Even though I know some of those who. Okay. You're guessing if the first watch went like this, we wouldn't be discussing numbers 2, 3, or 4. Yeah, we would. Mine was the first one. I had to send it back, and it was something. it was a broken stem. I mean, mine wasn't a loose stem; it was broken, and I don't know who. I've never heard of a broken stem either. So you know, there's just working a way through it. By the time that Abdul takes over, I hope we have all of these problems solved, so you don't have to deal with them. Hey, Apar, a lot of people most of the people I've contacted, everything's working fine. Okay. There are some people though, when something doesn't work fine, they I'm sure to know about it. Like hell, got to get it fixed. But that's probably not a bad idea. I'll see if they're doing okay with it. I'll check with what's his name? The guy who's the CEO of the Horological Society of New York. I got to be careful what I say. It just, hey, how does he like this watch? Everything working okay? Rather than, oh God, the world is falling apart. Okay, that's where we are right now, guys. But I thought you should know, and that's how come I wanted to talk to you about it. All right. Okie doke. Let's move right along. Okay. Anything else on Etude number 2? I didn't know that, Abdul. Yeah, Nicholas, thanks. Yeah, Nick, I got to talk to Nick. I got to talk to him about some other things too. Say, hey, Nick, we put you down in the GPHG as our sort of a charity beneficiary, and we're not on your list as one of the supporters. And we're probably one of your better supporters for a small outfit, relatively speaking. And so, what are you going to do? I know Nick is also a member of the academy, and so get him to do it. The guys that the thing that we're not getting from Agenor or Made isn't, well, there's no problem. Rather, there's a problem and we want to fix it, and we'll do it any way we can, and that's good. I don't know, those of you, Abdul, you probably know this too. Those of you involved in software development, you have no idea how many times something's wrong with the software, and certain companies like Microsoft says there's nothing wrong. After everything went to the hole the other day, and it was all on Microsoft stuff. Apparently, this was not Microsoft's fault, but some other company that does some business end of it. They sent out this woman from Microsoft who just looked furious. Microsoft hasn't done anything wrong. What? Agenor's not like this. Agenor wants to have things right, and that's one thing that I enjoy dealing with them. They don't say it's your problem. The only reason that Nicholas offered to have is just to save hassle on a simple issue, not to give up responsibility for it, and that's a good thing. Okay. All right. Let's take a look. Yeah, Donald. Yeah, that's not Agonized. We want to fix it. Hello, Eric. How you doing, man? Okay, this is something I wanted to talk about. This is for Etude number 3. If we can go on to that, onto Arizulu. this is something I got. I've talked about this before. I'll be known as a watch band junkie. But let me show you guys something that was sort of interesting, I thought. Okay, this is what I got in the mail for this Gator band. All right, the band was they had a special. And I'm such a sucker for specials, and it's a green, and then it's on the inside it's blue. It's more sort of almost a teal green. Anyway, so I get the thing from ABP Concepts, and it was sent in this relatively small priority mail envelope. The one I sent out to everybody, you got the big one. They're now all right, and it was $8.50 to mail a strap. Probably be the same for 4 or 5 straps, I would imagine too. Anyway, what I was thinking of, okay, well, how did they do this? And then I noticed they were sent from France. It's a Gator strap, and I went to this place called Parthian Watch Company. A guy named Amin Majidi in Armonk, New York. Okay. So, and then they sent me this. They sent me the Gator strap with the buckle on it. And what I was thinking, the U.S. is the big problem we're having with straps. I don't know if they're going to have a problem in Europe with it or not. What we have, though, is an alternative. And I was thinking of, because I checked out Parthian Watch Company online, and they look to be a sort of upscale, sort of near vintage watch company. And by near vintage, I mean like in the 90s and 80s and early 2000s. But they don't seem to be anything. And what I was going to do is seeing what would be involved. Now, this is not for something like the ostrich skin ones that involved or required only the fish and game license. That I now have a fish and game license, but this is stuff that goes through sites because it's Gator. So anyway, I'm gonna follow up on that, at least for the U.S. I don't know if the same thing holds for Canada or Australia or you guys in Europe or Asia. So, but anyway, just wanted to bring that up. Michael, yeah, they may have, but what they would need, there are 2 things, as I found out. I didn't think there would be any problem with ostrich because it's not on the sites list. I had gone over the sites list, wasn't on there at all. However, probably I better get a fishing game license and every other license if we try this. But it just sort of an idea for some ideas for perhaps shipping watches, get them all in one place in the U.S. and then ship them out. Just have one big shipment and then have individual shipments for the watches, something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't ship the watches priority mail, but that concept anyway. Anyway, so that's just something that I've been looking into, and for the most part, it's a U.S. problem and not anyone else's. But the U.S. makes up about a third of our group, so we've got about a third from Europe and India, Africa, and then a third from Asia and Australia, and then a third from the U.S. and Canada now. And I'm hoping that more guys from Latin America, Mexico, and will be involved too in the future. Um, Whipper, Whipple, Whippoorwill, Whippoorwill Road does sound pretty residential. I don't know though. I didn't whip it up on Google Maps. I've done that before. By the way, too, checking out a seller, a guy selling watches. I did that, and he ended up in a parking lot someplace. So probably not the person to buy from. But why don't you check up? Brian, check out that you live near. You're in New York. You bring it up on Google Maps and see if 21 Whippoorwill Road in Armonk is, some guy's shack or something. Okay, moving right along. Let me get these guys out of here. Second. Preview, click. Okay. Any other comments on that? On the whole idea of having maybe sort of using a single shipment and then sending out either a single shipment of the watches and then sending them out locally, so you don't have to go through customs and everything. This was a plan that we had originally with Michael Margolis, but it cost so much that we thought we better learn more about it ourselves. This was for the first watch that we did. So I may go back to Michael and say, "Hey, Michael, something about that." Okay, moving right along. I did last time. I said I'd get a hold of Matthew and get going on the dial and the case, and this one we would have to figure out the split for customs and sales tax and so forth. Oh, you're right. You're right. Okay. Well, what could happen on that? Usually, I think, Donald, if we send it FedEx or DHL from the U.S., they figure out the sales tax themselves, so we wouldn't have to bother with that. And sales tax and customs, the customs would be the same for all of us. Whereas the sales tax varies from state to state. Some states like what? Florida, I don't think have sales. No, Oregon. Oregon has no sales tax. Other states have one tax or the other. It's a big mess. God knows what'll happen after November. Okay. All right. Next thing, I contacted Matthew about moving. Now that we have our study done. Okay, and so this is what he did. He did some rough sketches, and he asked me. He said, "These are too rough." I said, "Don't let these out yet, because they're not. All they do is people would say, wow, no point to it." But this is where he is. Let me see if I can get this up for you guys and show you what he has on this. Hang on a sec. Sure. Okay. Um, this is what this is what he's got for now. He said, we need to find a way to attach the dial and then the glass after the movement. Um, okay, so you have the dial, and the dial is, well, the movement is thicker than what we have now. And we also have three hands that are going to be going on the center post instead of two. Up to now, we've just had we got something here. All we have are the hour hand and the minute hand, and they're on the same. They're coaxial, or co-located on the same axle. So now we have a triaxle, I guess, on that. So that's going to make it thicker. And then we've got the one. I it may be depending on where it is on the stack in the middle. We have the retrograde arm, the Zulu arm, that's going to be on the Zulu hour, which is same as UTC, but it doesn't change from UTC, or it doesn't change from Zulu. It'll be always on basically what is GMT time, or the GMT hour. Okay, so that's one thing you got to work out. And then since we want to follow the design, I think it might be a bit more expensive than expected. Need the case manufacturer's opinion. Now this is why I'm glad we started with 9,500 Swiss, 9,950 Swiss francs rather than 2,000 like we've been paying. I've been looking at some other cases, and they don't cost anywhere near what we've been paying for. $2,000 for a case is a lot. Now, granted, those cases are custom built for a movement, but I think we're paying a whole lot for that. And this one, what I'm hoping we'll be able to do is that, okay, if it's more expensive than the 950 that we're planning on, that's not so bad. Sure, you guys have opinions on this. So then he has a 3D model of the first dial design. I expected 0.5 millimeters on a large glass case is not that much for a nice piece, for better. I think he means visibility. As AI at work, maybe. Okay, so that's where we are on that. So it's been doing some stuff, but for God's sakes, the last thing we want is for any kind of rushing, because last time we had been led to believe that there would be no change in the movement. And there was, I guess, the package was a little thicker than expected because of the guilloche, and so we had to pay for a whole new production of cases because they had to throw out the first production of it. I mean, we don't want that ever to happen again. That's one of the many things that plagued us. Yeah, I yeah. Here's the thing. I agree with you. I had the whole budget worked out from the beginning, and I published that somewhere. It's up on one of the things, or it's out. It's available. Maybe it was in one of our meetings here. But what it was here was sort of the idea is that I think this movement will be more expensive given the fact that it's more than just adding a small seconds to an existing movement. This one doesn't have small seconds. it adds an added hour hand plus, excuse me, it does have small seconds, plus a retrograde small seconds. It's just totally different than the one we had before. So we're expecting a higher price for the movement. And so it's like, well, let's see if we can also, too, for a higher price uh, for the services from Matu, because Matu went from being a designer to really our guy as the on-site project manager. He's been doing that ever since he started, really. So the places that we were trying not to sort of cut quality, but to cut costs, were in the dial and on the case. Those were both were just huge knocks in the head. I think we actually ended up spending, probably after all the development, everything else they went through, about $1,500 per dial on Etude number 2. So that's, I mean, and then whereas on number 1, we were spending like $100 Swiss francs per dial, and I think if we can get back to that, we can still have an excellent dial. The expenses will be going into the new movement that we have, into the 6850. Well, we're trying to keep it in budget, Bright Belly. We really are, and it wouldn't be a bit more. Would be right back to where we had been before. It was starting at 2,000 Swiss francs. Then the bit more would be on that. I'd rather see the bit more on the 950 rather than on 2,000. Yeah, the percentage, Brian. Yeah, I think most budgets have about a 10% wiggle room. Um, I wish ours did. I mean, I wish we could see what I want to have is something really reliable. This is why we're going very slow on everything right now, because it's hard to go ahead unless we have a an agreement at for 102 whatever at a given price. Yeah, pretty much it, Abdul. That sums it up. But it's not. Here's the thing, though, man. I'll tell you, I've seen some really, really excellent cases for a heck of a lot less than we're paying, and I don't know. It's not that uh, Rutenland and Catton did a bad job. They didn't. They did an excellent job. They just charged us out the yin yang. Also, too, part of it was because we got that. That's why we want to nail it down. So whatever um, whatever steps that Matu takes to make sure that everything is the right size, I want to do it that way, okay, with the right size and get all of those details taken care of. Okay, let me see if there's anything else we got here. Let me check. Where did it go? Okay. All right, Abdul, you got anything? Oh, wait a minute. I'm talking about the case only. The case is really the only place for savings to offset the higher cost. No, so is the dial. We're gonna dialers too. Yeah, I if we if these guys say we can't do it for 950, um, we have to look at what they're going to say. Oh, it's going to cost you, let's say 1,500 or something like that. I don't know that I think we might have to say, well, wait a minute, let's see if you guys go back and sharpen your pencils and let's see if we can get it for something reasonable, because I it's hard to know how what they've got to stay in business, and they want to make a profit, and I'm all for that. But on the other hand, it's just that we're no longer the new guys on the block, and so we've got to get all of this. We have to get it right as ahead of time as much as possible. The fact that Matu is working along those lines, that's a good thing. Oh, Michael, it was about 100, I think, is what we paid for that. 100 a piece. Love it. That was, that whole dial was based on what Dufour had done for the Simplicity, because he had a little write up about it, and reading it, he said, this he liked it. He liked lacquer more than enamel, because lacquer was thinner and lighter, but had the same or near the same amount. Done right, had the same, and then all of these other reasons for it. So that's what we did, and it wasn't that expensive. Just to be clear, okay, I want to be clear with you, Bright Belly. He's doing both. He's contacted 3 movement makers, and that's a good thing. So before, we just contacted 1, but what he's working on before he can really go ahead and get a realistic estimate is to have things just right on the movement, figuring in the dial as part of the what's going to how thick it's going to be, which will affect the case and then the glass and everything else that goes together on it. Okay. Nothing useful there, I guess, huh? Okay. Anything useful from anyone? Okay. One other thing. Hang on a second. Got this. Good. I have a link. What I've done for the last, I think, ever since, I think it started right at the beginning of the pandemic. Let's see. Here we go. Do that. Rats. Hang on a second. There. I can take this out too. Okay, this is the link. If we have the every year we've been having, I think since about at least 2020. I think we had it before then, but we had a Grand Prix picks. These are picking the winners of the Grand Prix and awarding watches for. We had 3 watches that we were giving away for each of these. Some of you guys have entered it already. Some in the past. Some of you may have even won in the past. But it's up now for the 2024 Grand Prix if you're interested. And there's the link on it. I think it'd be easier if I put the link here. And you could do a copy and paste if you're interested in that. Okay. Anything else you guys have that I can give you an honest answer to? Yeah, you did. That's what I thought, Abdul. You did win. Was that the first year we had it, Abdul? Was it in 2020? I know that we had one in 2020. I wasn't sure if that was the first one or not. Well, that could have been back during the pandemic. At one time during the pandemic, we had daily meetings like this just so that we could. We were all locked down. We had that. I don't know if any of you were involved in that, but that was sort of how we tried to stay sane. Okay, anything else you guys have? Yeah, I think you're right, Abdul. I'm not sure when it was. Oh, I have one last thing. Okay. I think, as I mentioned, that Sebastian was too sort of focused on one thing, mainly the problem with the cases, because there were a whole bunch of problems with the cases. When I used to fly, we had something called the music scan. And I'm going to get a music scan for Sebastian. In flying, sometimes pilots would become fixated on one thing. They'd be fixated on the speed, the altitude, or something, and everything else would go haywire. For example, if you're concentrating on the altitude and you're not paying attention to the airspeed, you could hit stall speed and suddenly, boom, into the game. And so what they train pilots to do is that sort of like the old Lawrence Welk and a 1 and a 2 and a 3, and look at the different instruments so you're not sort of fixated on a single one. And I think I'll try to get one for Sebastian. Tell you, in this whole process we've been going through, we got to do the same thing. Okay, guys, take care, and we'll just keep on keeping on, I guess. Have a good week.